All right, continuing a podcast series for Christmas, wrapping it up, actually. Thanks for helping me out in these little host moments, Amy. It's been fun.
It has been fun. I loved it.
You like It's a Wonderful Life? That's the movie at hand.
I do.
I'm very happy to hear that.
I've
been very disappointed to hear that some people haven't watched it, haven't given it a chance. Like my good buddy Roy Jakes, he's just like the whole black and white thing.
He just doesn't like black and white movies?
I get how an old movie can be somewhat of an obstacle, just the age and everything. But I'm just saying, if somebody sits down and locks in on It's a Wonderful Life, it's one of the best movies ever.
Every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings.
I don't think she said that in the country way.
Oh.
Maybe she did.
Well, she should have.
You just owned it, though,
I did.
With the country.
It was sweet, though. It might make people want to go watch it. So I want to tell some folks what's coming up on the podcast next year early on. 2 years ago, we had an episode that was 5 different therapists with 3 different bits of advice for the new year. This year, we'll have a pastor's version of that same conversation. 5 pastors from Seacoast, and I hear 1 from outside of Seacoast, joining us to share some thoughts on the ways they think may be helpful for us to maintain health in our lives.
Yep. And we have an episode coming up with a relatively famous author, Shane Claiborne, and our good friend Mark Turnage,
Love
2
Mark.
Christian guys who have different perspectives on the war in Israel. We have an author who wrote a book covering a true miraculous story of forgiveness involving one of the Japanese pilots who dropped some bombs during the Pearl Harbor attacks, a day that lives in infamy in the U.S. We've got Pastor Brian Zahn talking about the beauty of being a part of God's kingdom, especially in this world of polarity, and then we'll be releasing stories from Asheville, obviously all about the restoration efforts in the post-Helene world up in North Carolina. Some crazy stuff, but beautiful stories for sure.
I love that. I can't wait. Well, let's tell them about being a patron of the podcast.
Yeah.
For the rest of this year, it's discounted, okay? Just this year. So lock in that lower rate in forever. And you get 4 extra mini episodes right away. Right away.
Bam.
Don't have to wait.
Boom.
Instant gratification, okay? I know y'all know what that is. More perks we'll tell you about later. You can go read about them now by clicking the link, Become a Patron. Here's a quick audio collection of the content you can get now if you join. If you're watching on YouTube, link to this commercial is in the show notes. And remember, all the money goes to support our ministry efforts in local prisons. There's also gift options. If you want to buy a subscription for someone for Christmas, great gift idea. If you're the tough person.
You can buy that as a year at a time.
Yes, the tough person that you don't know what to get, this is it.
But if they're not a Christian, they might not like the podcast.
You're right. Well, maybe that's what they need. Pray about it and gift it to them. Pray over it. That may be what they need. You don't know. But please write us at podcast@seacoast.org if you want to subscribe, but you just can't afford it.
Yeah, today we also have our 2nd annual Christmas Trivia Championship.
Let's go.
In which Corey Sackcloth, Teddy Winter, and Brian Adelman, these are all campus pastors. They're going to defend the title for Team CPs.
Yes.
It's about to go down.
Smartest people I know.
Yeah, are they really? Those 3 guys are the smartest people?
No, I just...
Then it's the host crew talking about being around family during the holidays. We talked some about possibly engaging in conversations a bit differently this time around when you're with your family, especially family members who you may disagree with on some important stuff.
You don't talk about. Certain things you don't bring up that you just know.
Right. And I'm thinking maybe you can engage differently. Lynn was a little more pessimistic about all of that. She, I think I'm a little more of a hopeful person than Lynn. But I'm talking behind her back right now.
Yeah,
she
please
can't
don't
defend
do
herself.
that. I will defend her. Don't do that.
Yeah,
That's
don't
not
do that.
nice. Yeah. That is Jack Hoey on It's a Wonderful Life. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Well, Merry Christmas, everybody. Hey, thank y'all for doing this with me for 4 weeks in a row. We got Jack Hoey talking about It's a Wonderful Life today. So we sent him away. Actually, he's on dad duty. But Jack was with us these last handful of weeks. And It's a Wonderful Life is on all through the Christmas holidays. Have you ever watched it, T, from beginning to end? With an open heart.
Yeah, I'm going to be 100% honest, and she already knows where I'm going with this.
I think I know where it can.
Yes.
That is a white movie
100%.
for white people.
I ain't never watched it. I've seen it on multiple times, and I have omitted it every time.
Have you even considered giving it a chance? It is seriously one of the best movies ever.
I have yet to find a movie that was not better than that in order to watch it. Like, I just is that the one with the little Ralphie kid who licks the pole?
No.
That lets you know I've never seen it.
That's how much he knows about it.
That was awesome.
That's
Listen,
classic
that was
right
awesome.
there. So you think It's a Wonderful Life is Red Ryder BB gun?
Well, that was the only thing that I don't know.
Every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings.
I've heard of that.
You've heard
No
that's-
idea where it came
That's
from.
from this movie.
Do you love it?
I don't love it.
Really?
No, I don't love it.
Wow.
I maybe have watched it all the way through one time.
How long is it?
I mean, it's a regular. It's not super long, but
Okay,
it's
yeah.
a movie. It's a movie. It won't hurt my feelings if y'all don't, but I would be very curious. Like, if y'all sat down and watched It's a Wonderful Life from beginning to end, I would be very curious if y'all came away and didn't love it.
When I say I've watched most of it, I'm literally talking like within the last few years. Until the
you
last few
didn't
years,
like
I've
it?
never watched it.
Wow.
Yeah,
Is
I
it just
didn't
because
love
it's
it.
an old movie? You
Yeah,
think?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of the same way with old movies, but this one
Yeah.
is different for me, man.
Oh, I was thinking about A Christmas Story earlier.
Yeah.
Red Rifle.
Yeah.
And, I have seen most
But you
of
don't
that
like
one.
A Christmas Story?
I've seen most of it.
Well, you know what's interesting is Priscilla grew up on Chevy Chase Christmas Vacation.
Oh yeah.
I did not.
Yes.
That was a little too
Now you
raunchy
talking.
it was too raunchy for our household. I wouldn't have been allowed. My brother and I grew up on Christmas Story. She thinks the Christmas Story, Red Ryder BB Gun, is just kind of a weird movie. I grew up on it. I love it. I have yet, and I give it a chance pretty much every year. I don't see the big craze in Christmas Vacation. I know that's like the
that's so
worst
funny to say
crime to
that.
say, but I don't
See,
get it.
I could care less whether I ever watch. I mean, I could care less whether I ever watch A Christmas Story again.
Yeah.
I don't watch. I usually these days I don't watch it.
Right.
You know, they run like 24-hour marathons or whatever. I don't watch it. But absolutely, Christmas Vacation. In fact, they're already running Christmas Vacation right now, early November, and I've been watching it.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's growing on me, but it was. I remember when Priscilla was so excited about it, I was just like, "This isn't that great."
We're getting a swimming pool, guys.
Well, Jack and I, we have a conversation on sacrifice, and I wanted to ask you guys. I've got a couple of examples. It's really funny too. People are about to hear how Jack cannot stand the phrase self-care, and he can't even bring himself to say
That
self-care.
sounds about right.
Yeah. How many things does Jack not like, or can Jack not stand?
But
The list is growing by the moment.
But here's the point that I made with him is I think that we're doing a pretty good job nowadays, just in general, when it comes to mental health in the whole, especially as Christians. We're like, see, Jesus says love God and then love others as you love yourself. We've been neglecting ourselves. And I think we're doing a good job making sure, hey, you need to take care of your own mental health or else you're not going to be good for anybody, sort of thing. But we also are called to live sacrificial lives. And so I was thinking about the holidays, and this is a very practical, generic situation that so many people will find themselves in. So I have told people in premarital counseling sessions before, hey, when you're married, you make your own rules. You can't try to please everybody, and for Christmas holidays, for instance, when both sets of in-laws want all this time from you and everything, you guys have got to make your own decisions and not feel like you have to cater to everyone. You got to, so that would be one route to take when it comes to advice during the holidays is, hey, you got to take care of your own self, make sure you're not overdoing it and all of that. But then the flip side of that is, when do you encourage someone to say, hey, maybe during the holidays, take some time out of your schedule and go visit somebody who it would be really meaningful to, or maybe stretch yourself to spend a little bit more time with other people. How do you guys navigate the whole, you got to take care of yourself, but also as Christians, we're called to live sacrificial lives. It's a part of dare I say, it's a part of our DNA. It's what Jesus is. He led by example. He lived sacrificially. his life was ended as far as a sacrifice. So how do y'all navigate these sorts of things?
I mean, this is always the answer. What is Jesus telling you to do? Right? And a lot of times, like the applying, like maybe you're sacrificing to see family, but his mom and brothers came to see him and he was like, who are my mother? Who are my brothers? Those who obey my father. And so it's like, what is the sacrifice that he's calling you to? And it may look different. It may be, we're going to be tired because we're going to give quality time to two sets of families. It may be that. It may be something else. And so I think our motive for why we're sacrificing determines whether it's a sacrifice or whether we are, like a lot of times I think if we peel it back and we're actually asking, like, what is my motivation for doing this? It's not sacrifice. It's people pleasing. It's, you feel pressure to do this, or everybody's doing this and this is what culture's saying. This is what's family saying. I don't want to start a fight with these parents or these in-laws or that, and so I think at the end of the day, sacrifice is always what he's asking you to do. Just like the rich young ruler. He was like, he didn't ask everybody to sell everything he had. There were women who were supporting his ministry out of their personal finances, And so I think everybody's sacrifice looks at what he wants in their heart. And so I don't think it's I don't think it's a like hard line of this is what it looks like for sacrifice for everybody.
Yeah. When I was thinking about this concept, I even thought like it seems almost as simple as living sacrificially is not synonymous with self-neglect. So in other words, I can live a sacrificial life and not neglect my needs.
Yeah.
If my sacrificial living starts to impede on my own needs and teeters on self-neglect, that's when I need to rein it in. But it does not make any sense at all to think living sacrificially is the same thing as self-neglect. It's not.
Yeah, I think.
And I'll give you an example. Like I personally feel strong convictions that as someone who follows Jesus, how money plays out in our household, it's just a part of our faith culture and our family. For instance, is we are going to not be able to do some things that we would be able to do if we didn't give any money away. So, in other words, it's not I'm talking about a regular tithe right now. It's not tons of money, but if we didn't tithe, that's a lot of extra money a month that our kids are aware of. Hey, if we had this money, so in other words, we do sacrifice. Yeah. It's a part of our day-to-day. We're not neglecting ourselves financially. Our kids aren't going without.
Yeah. I think to your point, it's clear that, yes, we are called to live sacrificial lives. And yes, we are also called to take care of ourselves. So there's a lot of gray area there. What's not gray and what's not negotiable is if life always looks like sacrifice, then you're not healthy. And if life always looks like just taking care of yourself,
I like that.
Then it's not healthy. So we could definitively say those are places that are anti-scripture, anti-Christ, following Jesus. But that obviously it should look somewhere in between those two. That life should be a mixture of both.
Yeah. No, I like that. You like that?
I love that.
Yeah. You think Roy's pretty smart?
Not as smart as Lynn, but pretty smart.
Smart, yeah.
I echo that
That's
sentiment.
Awful.
It's true.
Why is it awful?
That's not awful. Listen, every man knows that you always compliment the woman. You do. Smart man will always compliment the woman.
So now she got a compliment just because she's a woman.
What you're saying is you didn't necessarily really mean it.
Especially when it's true.
It was just because she's a woman that you wanted to compliment.
He did say especially when it's true.
Okay.
He did say especially when it's true.
Okay.
No, 100%.
All right, so in this episode, everybody's going to get to hear from our lead pastors. They, kick around some different Christmas stuff. And one thing I brought up to them, and I was like, I want to ask you guys this as well. I asked Josh and Lisa, And this can play out in all various sorts of ways during the holidays. But the specific example that I gave Josh is, and Lisa, but I kind of picked on Josh because I wanted to, hear how he would handle this. I said, all right, so Josh, let's say I give you, let's say it's December the 23rd, and I show up here at Long Point, and I give him a card, and he goes home, he opens it up, and it's he's a pastor in my life, but he's also a peer and a friend. So if the card's coming from a friend and it's just like, hey, just thinking about you and Lisa during the holidays, and it's a Hall's gift card for $300. I don't normally give them presents. They get a card from us, so that would be an abnormal thing. If Josh's thought, if how he processes this is, oh, wow, that's a big present, me and Lisa should probably do something for the Svensens. If that's what he thinks, hasn't he lost the real meaning of Christmas? Like at that moment when you think, oh shoot, now I need to do the same thing because now I feel bad. They were so generous and we didn't even get them anything. Haven't we lost the true meaning of giving and the true meaning of generosity during the holidays? It seems like we just and where this comes from is I don't ever want people to feel like if I give somebody a gift, I don't want them to think, oh, now I need to give Joey something. Do you think that? If you give something to somebody, do you think, oh,
no.
Yeah.
No.
It can't just be a case of you gave a gift to a person who don't know how to receive it. I mean, it took a long time for me to learn that when we don't let people do nice things for us, that we rob them of their blessing. So maybe he's just in a place to where he can't receive generosity and he needs a little lesson.
Yeah. Yeah. I like what Lisa said. She said it to her because it would be easy to say, yeah, you lost the meaning. But she said to her, it really does boil down to how is it perceived? Like she does not want someone to feel like they're not cared for. So it does kind of depend, and people will hear exactly what she says. I'm speaking for her right now, but it does depend on the type of relationship. Like there are certain people in your life where that would probably be a lot easier to receive from, whereas other people, you might just kind of feel like, man, they're just probably in a season of life where if we weren't to do something in return, it would maybe hurt their feelings. So it's kind of like a heart situation by situation sort of thing. How do you feel about that, Lynn?
Yeah, I don't know that if I received a gift from someone that I didn't give, I would be like, oh, I should have given them a gift. But I do feel like there have been seasons throughout life where maybe you get a gift from someone because not because they just have the gift of giving or gifts as their love language, but maybe they think that your friendship is different than you see it. And so I think in that case, and the people. So I think in those situations, you kind of wonder, are they giving me this kind of gift because they think we are closer than I think we are, or are they giving this gift because they just have this gift of generosity? And I feel like most of the time it feels like, oh, they're just being generous, or I know a lot of people who like giving is their love language and they're constantly giving people gifts. But there have been a couple of times in my life where someone's given me a gift and I've been like we're not close like that. So, and it's like, it's specific. So I think, it just depends on the nature of the relationship and what you know about them, what you see in their life. Are they the type of person who would do this to other people? Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's a nuance.
Yeah. So I'll put you in the same situation. You and I have known each other for a very long time, and we've been relatively good friends for a long time now. I don't give you a big present like that for Christmas. If I did, would you think, I'm going to talk to Angie, we need to get the Svendsen something, or would you be able to just accept a huge, like that to me is a big gift. If I just out of nowhere gave you a $300 gift cards
Absolutely.
to Halls, I mean, I probably wouldn't buy 2 meals. You'd probably have
big
to.
Gift to most of us. No,
we're close enough to where you'd probably be like, Joey, why? That's really, really, and we'd probably just talk about it. But I would hope that you wouldn't feel like, oh yeah, now I'm, because I would know that's why you gave it to me in the first place.
So,
we're getting this because we gave them that.
So, all honesty, there would probably be a wrestling match. There would probably be a moment where I felt like, oh goodness, like maybe we need to do something for them.
Yeah.
But I could also, in my head, I could win that argument in my head by going, I don't feel like that's, I don't think that that's the case. I don't think that we necessarily have to do it just because they did it for us.
Yeah. It's almost like a knee-jerk reaction, but then when you think about it. All right, so we'll wrap it up here when, like I said, Jack does a great job taking It's a Wonderful Life and really demonstrating how Christmas is a huge part of the Christmas message is God being sacrificial and sacrificing his life. And I was curious what you guys think. Would y'all put this in the category of sacrificing your pride during these holidays in family situations where the polarity is at a heightened state post-election and people who don't really relate to maybe the political or religious views that is common in their family dynamics? Do you think it would be sacrificial to our pride in a good way for, if the situation was right, for you to approach your family and say, during these holidays, hey, I actually am eager to try and understand your perspective more. Like, again, every family's different. Not everybody even talks that way. But if the situation were to present itself, the chances of that backfiring are very slim, wouldn't you say? To have that sort of posture with your family. Hey, again, every family dynamic, but if it was a natural thing, hey, we don't see eye to eye with stuff, but I've really been thinking about it. Because I love you, I want to understand why you vote the way that you do or why you believe the way that you do. That can't backfire, can it?
It can backfire.
Absolutely.
Because humanity.
Yes.
Because humanity.
But the percentage chance of that posture and it backfiring, wouldn't you say
I do think the posture is important. Yeah, I do think the posture is important. If somebody came with true humility in that, and they have a family that has division and polarity. I think that there are a lot of families out there that's not their issue at the holidays, so they wouldn't. But for families that are, if somebody really came in and said, hey, I'd really love to understand, and they can sustain that humility through the conversation, I think there's a possibility. But I think some people are so that it requires two people.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
But it can only be two. Like, if Lynn and Roy are having the conversation, they could probably do it. But if it was Lynn, Roy, and me, I don't know if you could have two people in your family who are super high strung and opinionated, and you try and sit at a table with them and have a conversation and it be okay. Like, I feel like, because you can only control yourself and what you say, you can't control what they say. So as soon as you add that other person, I'm thinking it's going left. But hey, y'all try it and let us know how it works.
Yeah. I mean, it seems, and I think what I'm trying to drive here is we're not even talking about someone offering a discussion. We're talking about a one-sided offer and basically saying, hey, I'm not asking for anything in return. I'm not asking you to listen to me. I love you, and so I want to understand you more. So it's not even asking someone to engage. I agree. It could backfire, but if you're literally asking, I just want to understand your perspectives and your convictions more, without the expectation of them also listening to your perspective. Okay, well, let me tell you, if it's just I want to understand more, I don't see how that could go awry in most cases.
Yeah, I think that this goes back to the Lynn's more cynical than Joey sometimes. Because I also think if you really want to do that, don't do it at the holidays. Like, do it before. Do it in a one-on-one conversation. Because you're right. Like, the holidays is seldom a time where there's just two people in a room.
Yeah.
It's just crowds of people. And like you add the factor of like more people. I don't see that as ending in a one-sided conversation. I see you could sit there and just be silent and listen, but somebody else is going to chime in. And when you start getting people chiming in, so I feel like if the posture is, hey, this is a season where I really want to show my family that I love them, let's start doing that ahead of the big family gathering. Yeah. Because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't want to throw a dynamite into the...
I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah,
I don't hold to the, like, we shouldn't talk about politics or anything, but come on. Don't talk about politics at Christmas dinner this year.
Yeah.
Don't ruin the family gathering.
Unless you don't like your family.
And
you're trying to get out of dinner. If your aunt can't cook, start talking politics and you won't have to eat their nasty potato salad. You're welcome.
Because on the slight chance that it does go awry, you don't want to, You don't don't want that conversation to be in that context.
And I think there are some people with this, and I kind of feel like I have that in my family, because I feel oftentimes like the oddball, when it comes to how I see the world, and I feel like it's fine. The chemistry is fine, and we can talk openly. And I think there's a lot of people, they have this deep desire because they equate being able to have these conversations with my family equates closeness, and that's what I want. I want this closeness, and so I think they just have this desire. I want to be able to talk these things open.
I just don't. And I would imagine for you, you're so inquisitive that your family's used to you engaging them and asking questions. And so it might be a different dynamic than someone who's used to doing that. And I think conversation is an art, and people aren't always just good at doing it. And so I think stepping in a time that's not volatile and will ruin Christmas dinner unless you don't want Christmas dinner.
Telling you.
How much would I have to pay? So I'm not asking you because you've seen it most recently. Is there any dollar amount that there has to be a price that I could pay y'all to watch It's a Wonderful Life from beginning
there's
to end?
definitely a dollar amount.
Did you do it $50?
100%.
25?
Slow down. I've already said yes to 50. Why would I go down?
If I cut you a check for $25, would you watch It's a Wonderful Life?
Hold out for 50. That's what I do.
I don't. Well, am I watching it during work hours or?
She's double dipping now. She's double dipping.
Well, I said $25 an hour. That ain't bad.
All right. Well, it's Josh and Lisa, and then we will have Jack Hoy on It's a Wonderful Life. All right. Well, Merry Christmas, you guys.
Merry Christmas.
Feliz Navidad.
Y'all love Christmas, right?
We do.
Is there anything that you don't like about Christmas? Like, it's the busyness, drive you crazy?
I don't like
she's looking at you.
I don't like when Christmas crowds out Thanksgiving.
Gotcha. So in other words, if I was playing Christmas music as you walked in, my job would be on the line, or you'd be pretty annoyed?
I'm not that dictatorial.
Yeah.
But,
look at that big word, dictatorial.
Word. Yeah. And I really would like it if Lisa would shoulder a little more of the weight with gifts. Because last year she made me buy at least one or two of them, and it felt like a lot. So
yeah. Well, I've got 5 quick questions for y'all. Just I'm in the Christmas spirit here, and a couple of them has to do with gifts. I did want to know, how do y'all do gift giving between the two of you? Do you give out some really big hints? Hey, here's what would be nice to get for Christmas, or is it complete surprise?
Or
do y'all
links.
Do y'all even do y'all even go all out with each other? How does it work with you guys?
I don't think we go all out with each other usually. It depends year to year, but she will send me like links of things that she likes. And
I try to keep it really, it goes back to that marriage podcast we did, where it's like, take the guesswork out of it.
Yeah.
Because, I won't say we had some swing and a miss here and there, but maybe like one or two things.
I was a horrible gift giver early on in our marriage. I worked through it and I got better, but I was bad.
Lisa just lied on the podcast, by the way. There were some swings and misses. So.
Hey, when y'all think back to childhood, and we can edit out you guys pondering because I really want to land on something good here. What was one of your most memorable gifts as a kid? Like, were you in the big Cabbage Patch phase?
Oh, yeah.
For sure. That was our era.
It was.
Was that one of your biggest years? Like, do you remember a Cabbage Patch Kid Christmas?
No,
No?
I don't. I do remember a Skip It. Do you remember
No.
Skip It's?
Skip-Its?
Yeah.
What's this? Do you know what a Skip-It is?
Why was I so obsessed
Is that
with
the Bop It?
Nope. It's
What's
not
Skip
a
It?
Bop It. A Skip
Oh, is
It
that
was
the
the
thing that,
one
like,
you
spun
put
around
on
your ankle?
Your
Yeah.
ankle, and you spin around and you jump over it. It's like your own jump rope.
Gotcha.
You
While
know?
Josh and I were playing video games, you were outside.
I just
with
remember
your cardio.
We were at my aunt and uncle's house, and I remember I really wanted to skip it.
Skip it.
So
I don't know
I
how
literally
missed that.
stood out on the deck for hours trying to skip it.
I remember it was not the first Nintendo, but one of the ones shortly after that. It might have been Xbox. But I remember thinking that that's what we got. It was like a family kids gift. And I remember the one time my mom and dad went out on a date night, and I actually opened it to check and then re-wrapped it.
Did you do that often?
I just did it that one time.
Okay.
Yeah, I only did it once.
My brother actually got a Nintendo. He was babysitting me. He's 8 years older than me. That's all he wanted was a Nintendo, like the first one. We had an Atari. We used to play on the Atari. Well,
2600, yep.
He got he got a Nintendo, and it was wrapped under the tree. He swore me to secrecy.
And here we are in a podcast.
Here we are. Literally unwrapped it. We played with it, and then he put it all back together. He
played with it. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. That's whole new level right there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I remember feeling so guilty and like, how do I do this? I can't tell mom and dad.
Yeah, I think I did it one time. I was such I guess a good word to use would be a goody two shoes. Y'all remember
Rule
that
keeper?
word? Oh,
Goody two shoes.
big
Oh, yeah.
time. And I think I
Same.
one time I took a peek, and I remember thinking the presents have got to be here, and the tree's not up, so I can find this stuff. But yeah, I did it one time and probably felt like I was going to go to hell for that one.
That could have been the thing, Joey. Tip the scales for you.
Yeah. All right. Have you guys had any heavy Christmas holidays that you can remember? Like it just was a tougher win than usual.
I would say after my sister passed, that was...
How long ago would that have been?
So that was 1999. It was Labor Day weekend, and she passed away in a plane crash very unexpectedly. So that Christmas was pretty rough.
I remember, did my parents or you got your parents,
parents.
shadow box with a bunch of,
Yeah, your
pictures and
parents.
stuff with Andrea?
Yeah, we're super blessed to have parents that are really close. I remember when we were dating, we would call one of them, and they would be in Tennessee together. So that was a huge blessing.
And you guys were together in '99, but not married, right?
Not married, but
Right.
dating.
Yeah. I don't know if I knew that.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's
Yeah,
awful.
my
And a plane
oldest.
crash? Was
My
it like
oldest sister.
a smaller plane, or
It was.
Well,
my
it was
sister,
a private jet, though. It wasn't like a prop plane. It was
Yeah.
a company
There
jet.
was a team of 8. She worked for a company that had 2 offices in Florida, one in Florida, one in Michigan. And they were working in Michigan that week. We're trying to get home early for Labor Day. This is really terrible. But the head guy, he was also a pilot in training, and he had a pilot on board. And we know all this from the black box, but he decided to skip his scheduled stop in Atlanta. And because he had calculated that they could make it home on the fuel they had. and they called for an emergency landing in Boca Raton, Florida, and missed the runway by about 1,000 feet.
Golly.
They
Wow.
clipped a building and hit some power lines. So it was, it was really, it was really hard. So she was married, had a 10-month-old baby.
Gracious.
So
And you were probably around 20, 19?
I was 19.
19?
yeah.
Hey, something really cool though is
Yeah,
that
please flip the script
that
here.
10-month-old baby
Yeah.
is getting married next year.
Oh my gosh.
And
Yeah.
asked Lisa to do the wedding,
Wow.
which was super cool.
It really was.
The way she even did it was awesome.
Yeah,
So,
it really meant a lot to me.
Wow. What was your sister's name?
Andrea.
Andrea.
Yeah.
Man. Gracious. All right. Obviously that was a heavy Christmas for you too, given how much you loved Lisa. Is there any other ones that
I
come to
remember
mind?
one Christmas. It wasn't heavy in that kind of a way, but when my sister Jenny was pregnant with Breck, he was born in January, but she had gone into, on Christmas Eve, actually, we got a notification that she was rushed to the hospital and, pregnancy complications. Don't remember what they exactly were, but I
Her
remember
rudder broke.
she was in the hospital, and we had like an iPad with her in the hospital bed while all the rest of us and her other kids were, and obviously they spent time with her in the hospital, but when we did the big family thing, she had to be like on the mantle with us, and that was just different, definitely heavier in the sense
Yeah.
that you knew that we wanted her to be in the room and she wanted to be in the room, but she
It was
wasn't able
pretty
to be.
remarkable, though, because she had the best attitude about
She
it.
did.
She
She's
was
amazing.
like, I'm sure it was really hard to miss Christmas Day, especially,
Sure.
not having your kids there and all that. But it was really awesome to see how she handled that.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So a little bit of a deeper question. And I think we can all relate to feeling this way, but have we missed the point of Christmas when we react to somebody giving us a gift and we think, oh, shoot, now I need to get them something? Like, haven't we missed the mark with what Christmas is all about? I think we have, even though I would feel that way if somebody gave me a present, but I try to work against that. It's like, if I give something to somebody, I don't want them to think, oh, now I need to get Joey something. I don't want them to think that. Have we missed the point?
It's a lot easier to be on the giving side there
Yeah.
than the receiving
Yeah.
sometimes. And I think that, it's better to give than to receive. I remember last year feeling that way.
Yeah.
But
Even Christmas cards. We
and
get a
I
Christmas
think-
card from somebody and it's like, oh, are they on our list?
But I do think that there is, I think it depends on like the motive. Is the motive that you want to be seen as somebody who like had it together and was prepared?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Or is it, gosh, I love this person and I wish that I would have been thoughtful in thinking of this person? I mean, to me, that's always the thing for me is like, I would never want them to feel like not loved
Sure.
by me. And so I think that's a complex question,
Mhm.
I'd say.
It's never happened to me. I always have already gotten them something.
What he means is his wife remembered to get something for that person.
Okay, so let me play this out. You and I are friends. I don't give you guys any. I mean, we send a Christmas
know.
card.
We know. Yeah.
If this time next month I see you and I'm like, hey man, love y'all. Here's something from me and Priscilla, and it's a $300 gift card to Halls. Wouldn't y'all? I mean, that's out of the ordinary for us to get. Y'all wouldn't feel like, oh, now we need to give the Svendsen something. You'd be like, wow, that was really thoughtful. Man, we're going to enjoy this. And of course, y'all would thank us, but
It would be complicated because I'd like to think that's the case because
Yeah.
we would be. I mean, obviously, we would be so grateful, and if you do that, I mean, we would be
Right.
really grateful. It might even lead
my
to better
gosh.
reviews next year. And just kidding. No, but I think that we would be. But I do think that that there would be an internal wrestle of
Sure.
like. But I feel like with you guys, if you did something like that, it would be. I think we would come to terms with the fact that, man, something was going on in your life that you felt especially grateful or like moved to do that and want to like honor that God did that versus feel like, all right, well, let's put them on our list next year, make sure we get them something nice. But it's weird though, because like all of our friend circles are probably big enough that you can't buy everybody that you're friends with a gift.
Right.
And so it's a unique dynamic though, like, because you do want to like be a good friend. And I think that, but isn't that funny? The part of you that narrative is it's selfish. It's turning that act of generosity on me and what I haven't done or aren't doing or I'm not good enough. And I think that's enough to say it's probably violating the spirit of Christmas, right? Because you can't just receive a generous gift. And we could probably, a good preacher would turn that into the gospel and how we want to give Jesus back. I'm not going to do that. I'm not a good preacher. But.
All right, so you said that you like for people to take, these are my words, not yours, but let's slow down, let's enjoy Thanksgiving before we start cranking out Christmas music. How long do y'all stay in the Christmas spirit from the 26th on? Like, I hate admitting this, but for me, like we listen to Christmas music. Well, I don't mind admitting this part. We listen to Christmas music in the car on the way back from the fair last night, but it will turn off on the 26th, and it's something I wish I could continue, but for me, it's like it's over. Christmas is the 25th, and once we're at, and I would love to be able to extend it. I know people who can stay in the Christmas spirit between Christmas and New Year's. I can't. How about you guys?
So for me, Christmas starts on Christmas Day for me because, I mean, this is the reality. And I have wrestled with, this is just being real, don't judge me, but I wrestle sometimes in this season, the season before Thanksgiving, of starting to feel the stress of Christmas because I do the lion's share of all the shopping, the wrapping, the meals, all of the planning. And I actually started, well, let me back up. So when the 25th gets there and everything is done, that week between Christmas and New Year's is like, I don't do anything. Like, we play, we enjoy our family, we still do holiday stuff around the town. And so for me, that is like the sweet week. I love that week because it is just all about play. There is no, gifts to remember to buy or things to wrap or, the hustle and bustle is over. And so that to me is like, I mean, for us, it's like Sabbath week of the year, And so, so I won't take down our tree until after New Year's for sure. Yeah. And so we still listen to Christmas music. We still, all the things.
Yeah. I'm trying. I think it would be maturing on my part to be able to extend it. Yeah. I think it's immaturity. Well, we got to turn off the Christmas music. How about you? Are you more naturally inclined to keep celebrating what Lisa just described?
Yeah, I think she is the pace setter on that in our home. So I think we do. And, with the church and all of that, there's just a lot of busyness leading up to Christmas. And Christmas Eve is, usually 4 services here at the church. And, we're all here the whole day. And so I do think there's like an exhale, which is why like last year I got sick on Christmas Day, got the flu. Is that what it was? Mm-hmm. And I think part of it spun me into like a tailspin of anxiety. And like, I just was really down for like a week or two after that. And I think part of it is that we put a lot of high hopes on that week of like it being a restful family Sabbath. So I don't know if it's because we want to keep listening to Christmas music or if it's, we just don't want to do any work that week to take it down. So,
yeah. I will say one of the ways that I have started to combat the like feeling overwhelmed, feeling like, oh gosh, here comes Christmas and I have 1,000 things to do, is I've tried to give myself a deadline of up until 12 days of Christmas. I say 12, sometimes it's 10, just being honest. But then I try to, ahead of time, plan out the 10 or 12 days prior to Christmas, I try to be done. I try to be done with everything. And then I try to really be intentional about every night we do something with our family that is intentional to celebrate the holidays, to remember the reason for the season. And so I pick out, I literally look at everything that's happening anywhere close to us, and we just enjoy, we just try to.
And sometimes it's staying home, watching a Christmas movie,
yes.
and
it's
cookies or whatever. It's
I
not
love
always
Jenna.
going
Jenna
somewhere.
did popcorn, pancakes, and Polar Express,
Heck yeah.
So just things that just slow us down and really to savor, because the reality is our kids aren't going to be in our house. We have a junior, so we're just trying to slow down and really enjoy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let's be very tactical. I'm gonna give you that Hall's gift card. You give me one, and be an excuse to just boom.
Listen, we both are. We're spending our own money on our own halls, but it feels like we're spending some of it.
Exactly.
So I got $300. I'm going to spend $400. Then we only spend $100 a night.
So are you subscribed?
I am.
All right. Did you notice my Christmas gear?
Oh, yeah. I see that green shoes, red shirt. Yeah, very nice.
Yeah. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. Would you say that you really like this movie a lot?
Oh yeah, yes, very much.
And did you tell me that you watched it for the first time to prep for this in 10 years? It's been a little while.
No, so when I sat down to watch the movie again to start working on the message, I just kind of realized, I just thought to myself, okay, when is the last time I've seen this movie? And it was probably high school, which meant it was about 20 years.
Dang.
Yeah, and so that was really crazy to realize, because I watched it a bunch growing up, and but I as I watched it, I realized very quickly that I remembered everything.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't one of those deals where, if it's a movie and seen in a long time, you're like, oh, I totally forgot about that part.
Mm-hmm.
No, I remembered everything.
Yeah.
And that was really neat.
Yeah. As a kid, I used to, the movie wouldn't keep my attention until Clarence is introduced and all the crazy stuff happened.
Mm-hmm.
But now as an adult, I really appreciate all of the leading up to the climate. All right. So I've got some random facts that I'm excited, because if you haven't heard of any of these, I think they'd be kind of interesting to a fellow It's a Wonderful Life fan. So first of all, the movie, if you're familiar with the movie, most of you are, there's a lot of snow. It was recorded in the summer of 1946 during a heat wave.
Nice.
It had a big budget for the time. I was shocked. $3.7 million budget for this movie. That just seems like a lot for back then. So it's no wonder that the crew put up a lot of time and effort into constructing the town of Bedford Falls. This set took 2 months to build and included 75 buildings stretched out over 4 acres in Encino, California. So everything that you're seeing was a movie set. So Carl Switzer, aka Alfalfa from The Little Rascals, played Freddie. He was the guy that was jealous of George dancing, and his buddy suggested to him, "Hey, why don't you open up the floor, because it's a swimming pool down there." The one, and he does like this. That's Alfalfa from Little Rascals. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
There you go. So Capra, is that the writer and producer?
Frank Capra. Yep.
Yeah, him. Donna Reed and Jimmy Stewart, main characters, have all called It's a Wonderful Life the greatest film they have ever made. And then this was a little bit disappointing. So his Jimmy Stewart's buddies in the movie, Ernie and Bert, I thought for sure Ernie and Bert on Sesame Street were named after them, but I think that's just rumor. But that's way too coincidental. Ernie and Bert.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look that up.
All right, so I have a couple of questions that I want to throw in there before we get into the meat of this movie. And by the way, I really, really like the sermon. I love the points that you bring up. But first of all, I'm curious, being a guy that you're more of a church history, you've made that very clear with me that you're not the theological
I've called
guy.
you up in the middle of the night and say, hey, listen, just in case you didn't remember,
I'm not your
I'm not a theology guy. I'm a church history guy. That's true. I have done that.
But you enjoy theology. The whole guardian angel thing, no biblical basis, right? I don't think guardian angel is ever mentioned in the Bible. Because Clarence in this
not
movie
as such.
is the guardian angel of
Yeah.
What's his name? I forgot. George Bailey.
George Bailey.
Yeah. Do you have any sort of awareness in your day-to-day? There's a passage, I think, in the New Testament about entertaining strangers. They could be angels, like Jack Hoey. Do you think along the lines of, maybe that was an angel that person just interacted with? I'll give you a quick little story. So they were my peers. They were super young, but friends of the family. 2 girls. They just got in their heads. I think they were about 5 and 3 years old. Church let out. They couldn't find their parents. So in their dumb little brains, they're just like, we'll just start walking home. Bad decision, but you're 5 and 3 sort of thing. Well, some stranger basically saw them, walking away from the church, stopped them, said, hey, what are you guys doing? Told them, hey, why don't we start walking back? They started walking back, reunited with their parents. The girls mentioned this guy. They turned around, and there's not a guy in sight. To this day, this family thinks that was an angel. Could have been. Like, how does your mind think of stuff like that?
I mean, possibly. It's just hard to know. I think, there are, when you think about the Bible, I think the thing we see more is that, God definitely has sort of his angelic host or forces that he uses. I think it's is it Hezekiah who, Jerusalem's besieged and he goes out and his eyes are opened and he sees like the army of the Lord with them, right? And so I definitely think like angels are real and God does use them. They don't just sit in heaven doing nothing. The idea of personal guardian angels, that's not really attested quite the same way in Scripture. I'm not opposed to it.
It'd be kind of a neat concept if we get to meet our guardian angel in heaven.
Sure. Would you want to? Or is it there are definitely some people whose angels probably putting in for reassignment. It's like, I can't with this guy even one more day.
You get to heaven, you meet your guardian angel, they're like, I really don't like you.
Or like you were like one of the people who ran through like 20 of them because I just kept asking to be reassigned. Yeah.
Oh, man. All right. So a quote from your message, It's a Wonderful Life. And I mean, I'm very excited about this conversation because it really is one of my favorite movies. Sometimes I watch it every year, and there's sometimes I'm like, maybe this is my favorite movie of all time. You say It's a Wonderful Life is not about what a good man George Bailey is. It's about what a loved man George Bailey is. I love that. And I'd love for you to unpack that. And maybe for those folks that have been living under a Christmas rock every single year and have never seen It's a Wonderful Life, kind of give a snapshot of the movie and what you mean by that.
Yeah. So It's a Wonderful Life is the story of George Bailey, who is he grows up in this kind of this nowheresville little town called Bedford Falls, and he grows up kind of dreaming about leaving it, right? Like he wants to travel and go to college and kind of live this life of adventure. But George is also someone who, I would say he feels a lot of responsibility. So he rescues his brother from drowning when they're kids, and he kind of loses hearing in one ear as a result of that. And then as he gets older, he's about to go travel, and his father dies, and so he decides to take over the building and loan that the family runs, and so kind of over and over he makes these sacrifices over and over throughout the film, and he gradually gives up pretty much entirely the life he wanted. And he takes on a life that he expressly didn't want. He's stuck in Bedford Falls. He hates the building and loan, at least from a position of working there.
Right. It's not like he is just dying to take over from his dad.
No, he says it's the last thing he wants to do.
And kind of hurts his dad's feeling at the table.
Yeah, well, it was the 40s. Men didn't have feelings then. But yes, so the movie is kind of over and over he makes his sacrifices. And so, it's kind of easy to, I think, and not wrong per se. George Bailey is a good man. But, as I watched it again, it's like, that's not really what the movie is about, though. Because if the movie is just, George Bailey is really good, then there's not really any redemption for him. It's just kind of a series of sacrifices that don't really mean anything for him. But, at the really big, twist or turning point in the movie is his guardian angel Clarence comes and basically says, all right, you can see what a world without George Bailey
because
would be
he's suicidal. He's on
he's
a bridge
suicidal,
about to
and
jump.
Clarence, well, actually, what Clarence does is he jumps in the water before George can. And so George, just like he did with his brother, he jumps in the river to save Clarence. And afterwards, they're drying off and warming up, and George basically says it'd be better if I'd never been born. And so Clarence says, okay, let's see what that would be like. And what George realizes is that the town isn't the same because it's been taken over by this greedy banker, Mr. Potter. And, obviously his family doesn't exist. And all of these things would be different. It's not just about, George is so good. It's George made all these decisions out of love. And they're not just out of obligation, because as you see the movie progress, it's not that... So, for example, his brother is supposed to come back and take over the building and loan, so George can finally go to college. But his brother comes back, and he's married, and he's got this job offer from his wife's father. And you can see George realizing this is better for his brother, and he needs to take this job. And that is kind of a moment of anger and a little bit of bitterness for George, but he makes it out of love, not just obligation. And so that's why, when it comes to the end, and, the end of the movie, which, if you haven't seen it, look, the movie's almost 100 years old. This is not a spoiler. But, basically all these people show up to George's house at the end of the movie to basically bail him out because he needs help.
It may be the best scene
it really
of all
is.
time.
But this is not dozens of transactional relationships. Right? They're not coming here because they feel like they owe George, even though all of them do owe George. They're there because they love George. And that's a difference. And I think that's the thing where if all these relationships are transactional, then there's no real meaningful realization for George. Mm-hmm. It's realization that his life is actually very full of love and all of these beautiful things, even though it doesn't have any of the things he thought that he wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that, one of the things that, and you couldn't mention all the examples, but there was a scene where he was a teen working for Mr. Gower. Yeah. And basically his boss had just found out that his son had passed away, and I think intoxicated a little bit, accidentally put inside of regular prescription pills that was poison. And
it was a prescription for a little kid.
Right.
And, Mr. Gower just found out that, I think his son died in, I think it's World War I.
Right.
At the time at that point in the movie. And so, he's drunk and he fills a prescription wrong. And actually, when I was watching the movie, that's when I was like, I got to include this scene. And then I watched him I cannot include this scene because George basically, he goes to confront Mr. Gower, who's furious to figure out why isn't this prescription arrived at his house.
Slapped a bunch
and George is trying to tell him. And, it's the 40s portraying the 20s. And so Mr. Gower's boxing this 10-year-old's ears.
But when Clarence starts showing George what life would be like if he had never existed, and Mr. Gower walks into the bar, basically, and the bartender is like, this guy's been in jail his whole life for poisoning a kid. Oh my gosh, that's just such an emotional, as the viewer of the movie, I'm like, oh my gosh, he would have never realized how impactful that one decision of making sure his boss didn't poison the kid, and you see it play out. It's like this guy spent his whole life in jail because you weren't there. It's huge. All right, so would you say your main point that you're driving home, and I like to kind of get inside your head and guess, when people watch this sermon, are you hoping that from this point on, hey, I'm trying to give you a reminder that Christmas, the theological implications is that there's a big sacrifice that was made, and it was Jesus, basically, who is God, who belongs in heaven, said, I'll take on the form of human and rescue humanity. Christmas is about sacrifice.
Yeah. Well, so I would say there are really, I think, two things. from the movie and the message, and one is to see your own life a little bit differently. Because I know there are people that I know who kind of see their lives as disappointments because they didn't turn out the way they wanted. And sometimes it's a disappointment because we feel like we've been forced to make these decisions that we didn't anticipate and didn't really want. And what I would say is that, obviously, like there are always terrible circumstances and things are beyond our control. But that's really no barrier to actually realizing that there are beautiful things in your life, and that there are things that your choices have done that you just really don't understand and can't realize the impact of your life. But the second thing is, one of the things that I really like about the movie is it actually doesn't show George just as he's just such a good man, and like you do see him get bitter from his decisions. He doesn't want to do these things. It's never hey, I'll do this. It's great. I'm happy to do it. Like, no, he wrestles with it. He gets bitter and angry.
Yeah, we don't hear him one time say, "I'm blessed and highly favored." Not one time.
No, he does not. Right before he goes to the bridge to contemplate taking his own life, he actually has this complete breakdown in his house and screams at his family, screams at his kids. I mean, basically, completely loses control. The movie never portrays him as this, perfect person. So the other thing is to realize that, when Jesus came and he made these sacrifices, he did it for joy. It was not something that he was disappointed to do or that he felt like he had to do. Sometimes I think we think of Jesus and the cross like our mom's loving us. Like, well, your mom has to love you. She's your mom. Jesus didn't have to come. He just didn't. He didn't do it because it was on his to-do list as God. He did it because he wanted to. And, Hebrews says it was for the joy that was set before him. I think that's Hebrews. In my message, I really look at Philippians 2, which talks about Paul says, have this mind that Christ Jesus had, which is he didn't try to grasp, just because he was God, he didn't insist on being treated that way, but he humbled himself. And then Hebrews talks about, well, why did he do it? He did it for the joy that was set before him. And so, kind of this willingness to happily humble himself. And George is willing, and he does it out of love, but he's never happy to do it, right? And that's not a bad thing.
It's human.
It's very human. Yeah. But Jesus was happy to humble himself, and he did it for joy. And the joy that was in front of him was us. And I think that contrast really helps us understand that it wasn't an obligation for Jesus. He chose to do it, and he wanted to do it.
Yeah. So we read in Scripture that we are to take up our cross and carry as our Savior and Lord did. How would you answer the question, do Christians have a responsibility to be sacrificial or live sacrificial lives? Is that our responsibility?
Yeah, I do. I think it's a human responsibility, though. If there's no one you're sacrificing for, then you live a profoundly self-centered life. And I think like a life that is all about you is, kind of the most pedestrian form of evil there is. And I do mean evil. Like, I think to be entirely self-centered is to really lose your humanity, in a sense. Like the essence of parenthood is to give of yourself so that this next generation can flourish. If you parent selfishly, you're taking from your children, and that's the inverse of how that relationship is meant to be. And so to me, sacrifice is a profoundly human thing. And, I think the insight that Christianity has is that God too lived sacrificially, because that's the opposite of every other kind of approach to the divine in history, right? Christianity says that actually God made the same kinds of sacrifices for us. Wow. And so when we live sacrificially, it's not just because it makes sense, right? Like parents sacrificing for children is like, well, that's a biological imperative, right? Christianity says actually that kind of sacrifice can be applied to anyone. And when we live sacrificially, we have the opportunity to look more like Jesus.
Yeah. So I feel like in it's been a good thing with there seems to be in society a more awareness of mental health stuff, and it's permeating the church, and I think that that's a good thing. And I have brought this up a lot myself, and I've heard other people talk about how it seems that historically, sometimes the church has missed the whole, hey, take care and love yourself. Jesus says, love God and then love others as you love yourself. And it's like we seem to have neglected that. And now I feel like we've thrown the pendulum so far as self-care that we could possibly miss the blessing of living sacrificially. Like, how do you balance that tension? And I thought, here's an example. So I've heard, I've done premarital counseling, and you have too, and you talk to couples about how to have boundaries with the sets of parents. And like during the holidays, you guys make your own rules. You don't have to, try to please everybody and run yourself ragged. So that would be a very practical, hey, make your own traditions. Don't feel like you have to people please with everybody. But the flip side of that is during the holidays, maybe think about sacrificing some of your time and visiting with someone who that visit would be very meaningful for. Like, which one is it? How do you personally try to navigate that tension of sacrifice but not neglecting yourself?
Boy, that's tough. I think it really does. It has a lot to do with who are you as a person, and what does sacrifice look like for you? And like, there are going to be some commonalities, but like, so the way in which, as we've talked about in this podcast before, so I'm very introverted. And like, introvert doesn't mean you don't like people. Like, I like people. Like, you and I have had lots of really good conversations and extended conversations too. So it's not like I'm a hermit and I don't like people. I love people and I really enjoy talking. But the way in which I, might be selfish or practice. I really do hate the term self-care. It's just whatever. I really do not like it. But the way I would practice that, if I'm being selfish, is isolate. Like, I could probably, like, if I ever found myself in a situation where I was totally alone, like no family, no friends, I could exist that way and be happy. But like, one of the things, but I think wisdom is realizing that doesn't mean that that's a healthy way to exist.
Right.
Like, I could be totally happy. So like a couple years in a row, I've done a writing week out at a family friend's lake house, and for like both those weeks, except like when I check in with Laura and the boys on FaceTime, I don't sometimes say a word out loud for, days. Much less encounter another person. And that's that's amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
But, kind of wisdom is realizing just because there are ways in which I could exist that would make me happy, that doesn't mean that that's the healthy way for me to be.
Or fulfilled. I wonder if you would, at some
fulfilled
point.
Sneaky, because I could feel fulfilled.
Yeah.
But I think that, I hate the term self-care, from a Christian perspective means, what does it look like for you to flourish instead of feel fulfilled? Because flourishing is more about this, kind of well-rounded, I've realized that actually I flourish more when I am in a relationship, even though I could probably feel fine and feel happy with the minimal amount of relationships. I'm better as a person when there's more. And so, even though there are decisions where it's like, I would really rather just not go anywhere tonight and just read and, go to bed. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, wisdom is actually choosing to go and be social. If there's an invitation or it's like, boy, I haven't seen so-and-so in a while. That's wisdom, even though my inclination is to do the opposite.
Yeah. 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 Well, let's wrap this up talking about relationships. And I love that you pointed out, I'll actually read, you said that you think this movie is actually kind of subversive when it comes to American values, or at least it subverts our current values. Our culture values self-realization, the pursuit of personal achievement, and establishing our own identity. Chasing your dreams is seen as the highest good. This movie celebrates the opposite of all those things. George gives up his dreams dreams, sacrifices any chance at real personal achievement, and assumes an identity he never wanted. I want to say I think it was Rick Warren. I saw him speaking at a graduation, and he mentioned, and it was in a very Rick Warren moving way, but just mentioned how when someone is on their deathbed, the last thing they ask for is their trophies and certificates and diplomas. Hey, will you please surround me with all that stuff? I just want to gaze at it in my last final breaths. It's bring family, bring the people that I love. And it's one thing that this movie really makes me think about is that at the end of the movie, he realizes his reputation is shot, because you have to see the movie if you probably know why, but he's going to jail. So he's gonna, but all of a sudden his wife knows who he is because he's not in that crazy nightmare of never having existed. His kids adore him. And it's like that made all things better. Like, he didn't care. He even, it's kind of a funny part in the movie. It's just like, I bet you're here to take me to jail, and you're here for warrant of my arrest. And that movie really makes you ponder relationships are what makes life worth living. Yeah. And even if you don't have anything else, if you have relationships and healthy, fulfilling relationships, that's what life is all about.
Yeah. Well, and all of those relationships came because he made choices he didn't want to make. And choices that he spent his adult life thinking were the wrong choices. Like, I think that's really, with that scene in his house where he has that breakdown, that's where it all really comes to a head. Whereas, like, his life has been a disappointment to him, and he has been a disappointment to himself. But what that period with Clarence, looking at a world without George Bailey, what he realizes, it's not just, the town would be better. It's that the people that I love wouldn't exist, right? Because his brother would have drowned, and his wife is kind of an unmarried old maid, which, like, old maid, she's like in her 30s or whatever. But
they really made her look like an old maid, though.
Yeah. But his kids don't exist, and it's like the people that he loves most in the world are in his life because of decisions that he didn't want to make, and I think saying, so those decisions are worth it, really doesn't quite get there. It's almost like it makes those decisions the right ones. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think that's really how he feels about it. It's not just, I guess it was all worth it. It's, you have to think he would have made all of those decisions again, given the chance, and he probably would have done it joyfully, knowing what would have become.
Wow. Yeah. Do you think that, so thinking about the importance of relationships, do you think that in today's society, so 2024, as opposed to, let's even say before there was electricity, so when the sun went down, you were very limited in your options of what you can do, sort of thing. Don't you think it's harder nowadays to invest in meaningful, healthy relationships? Like, I'm just thinking, so this is kind of a cop-out, but we have tons of ways of entertaining ourselves, and so the distraction issue. But then even like commute time. Back in the day, you didn't accept jobs that would take you an hour to drive to. Isn't it harder? Aren't we busier as a society?
No. That's just what we tell ourselves so we don't have to confront the magnitude of our failure. You didn't have to commute an hour. It's like, no, but she'd work 12 hours. It's like, I don't even really know what that means, especially now when it's like, increasing number of people, their commute is from their bed to their desk. No, it's not harder. It's just different. These are all choices we make, and especially like all the ways of entertaining. One of my favorite tweets or posts, because it's X now or whatever, is a guy who's just kind of making fun of the idea of like the whole idea of like social media abuse. It's like, close your eyes. It's on a phone. You can put your phone down. It's like, what do you mean? And I was like,
wait, social media abuse?
Yeah, well, right. Just the idea is like, I'm being abused on Twitter. It's like, just put your phone down, man.
Yeah.
Just put your phone down. You don't have to look. You just close your eyes. And it always makes me laugh. But it's like, these are all choices we're making. No one is forcing us to spend our time in any particular way. We just do. And now it's like, I'm not trying to minimize, how powerful, kind of social media and our devices are in terms of like, it really does mess with your brain chemistry. Like I know several years ago, I feel like I almost had to relearn how to read books. Not like read in general, but like I realized years ago, it's like, oh my gosh, Twitter has ruined my ability to read for more than 5 minutes at a time. And I had to kind of retrain myself to really read deeply with that kind of intense concentration that books require.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. It takes you 5 minutes to read a tweet, but go ahead.
Such a jerk. But yeah, like it really does mess with the brain chemistry. But like these are choices we make, and it's choosing to have real relationships and choosing to invest your time there is a choice that we are all still free to make. And I think, it's I don't know if it's easier or harder. I'd say it's the same as it was. It's just the way, the world's different. And so the way we go about it is different. Like, 1,500 years ago, if you're living in a village in Europe, your social relationships basically are limited to that village. And your grandparents knew everyone else's grandparents. And that's because you were limited by mobility. Right. And today, mobility isn't a limitation. I would say that the limitation that we really do have to wrestle with is distraction. And I'm not saying it's not real. What I'm saying, though, is we're not powerless against it. We can choose. And I just think we lie to ourselves that, it's harder.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you ask folks to wrap up your message, what will you do with the Christmas story, the realization that God gave up everything so that he could bring you back into the family? What would you recommend that people ponder and think through?
So I mean, when it comes to like movies or messages, really, I really think it depends on like what are the things that you're noticing, what are things that really stand out to you, and so I don't think there's a one size fits all. Like, what do I want everyone to take away? I think the one thing I want everyone to take away is you cannot fully understand the impact of your choices. But also, even more importantly, I really want people to understand that, Jesus came here and he went to the cross out of joy and love, not obligation. And so I think, what does that mean for you to realize that? Maybe that means that you look at the choices that you've made in your life a little bit differently, right? Like maybe you stop seeing them out of, I hate my life. Oh, my life is awful. Your life isn't awful. Your life is still a blessing and full of blessings. And what does it look like to orient your life around, kind of the joy that is in front of you instead of the obligation or bitterness? So we've all made decisions that we'd probably prefer not to have made. And so what does it look like to look at the example of Jesus and look back on the decisions you've made a little bit differently, and then look forward towards when I'm confronted with a decision or a sacrifice, how do I see it a little bit differently?
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, Merry Christmas, man.
Merry Christmas, Joey.
This is awesome. And I would highly recommend that if you haven't seen It's a Wonderful Life, watch it and ask the Holy Spirit to minister to you, because it's that powerful of a movie.
It's a great movie.
You've been listening to the Things You Won't Hear on Sunday Seacoast podcast. In the show notes, you'll see a link to our Facebook group page. Also, we'd love for you to consider subscribing so you get these episodes downloaded right when they come out. Thanks so much for listening.